So Hare Krishna everybody. Today we will be reading from 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 5. So you can repeat after me. Yagya dana tapa karma natya jam karyam evatat yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam yagya dana tapa karma natyajyam karmam evatat yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam yagya dana tapa karma natyajyam karyam evatat yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. Would anyone else like to recite? Anyone?
Yagyadana tapa karma
Yagyadana tapa karma
natyajam karyam evatat
natyajyam karyam evatat
yagyodanam tapaschaiva
yagyodanam tapaschaiva
pavanani manisinam.
pavanani manishinam. Anyone else would like to recite?
Yagyadanam tapa karma
Yagyadana tapa karma
natyajam karyam evatat
natyajyam karyam evatat
yagyodanam tapaschaiva
yagyodanam tapaschaiva
pavanani manishinam.
pavanani manishinam. Any Mataji would like to recite? Yagyadana tapa karma natyajyam karyam evatat yagyodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. So word to word meaning: yagya, of sacrifice; dana, charity; tapa, and penance; karma, activity; na, never; tyajyam, to be given up; karyam, must be done; eva, certainly; tat, that; yagya, sacrifice; danam, charity; tapaha, penance; cha, also; eva, certainly; pavanani, purifying; manishinam, even for the great souls. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Acts of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity and penance purify even the great souls. Purport: the yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of those sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yagya. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says that here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind so that it may become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this Vivaha Yagya should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. Sannyasis should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life a young man should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All the prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of heart. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Rahunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लांघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So Hare Krishna everybody. Today we are discussing the 5th verse of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this is an interesting verse, and the context of this verse I will explain why Krishna is saying this. So basically, if you look at what is happening in Bhagavad Gita, or if you look at what is happening in this section, Arjuna decided not to fight. So, there's a whole war that's about to happen in the Mahabharata. And then Arjuna somehow, at the last minute, he decided that he does not want to fight. So he wants to give up. And for giving up, he gives 5 reasons why he wants to give up that fight. So then Krishna essentially speaks through the 2nd to the 18th chapter, convincing Arjuna that he should fight. So one of the arguments that was raised by Arjuna was that, these Kauravas, they are very much materially minded because they want the kingdom, they want to enjoy the kingdom. So why should we degrade to their level? We are in one sense more advanced than the Kauravas. So why should we degrade to their level? Actually, we should not perform all of these activities which cause about suffering of this whole universe. And Arjuna rightly pointed out, he said that, as a result of this battle, so many men will be killed, so many Kshatriyas will be killed, and because of that, so many widows will be made, and because of that, so many kids will be born without their parents, etc. They will not learn traditions and all of that. So Arjuna made a very valid points, but Krishna is essentially trying to convince Arjuna that he should not give in to these thoughts, because ultimately, whatever happens, it is orchestrated by the will of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is essentially answering one of the arguments of Arjuna, where he was saying that because we are elevated, we do not need to perform all of these activities. So then Krishna is saying here that actually there are certain activities which are performed even by those who are elevated. So as you know, like if you are going to, all of us would have been to school. So when we go to school, when we are in grade 1, we get some homework to do, like you have to write ABCD, for example. Then when you go to 5th grade, for example, then you have to study some basic science, like, you study the food chain, the food web, etc. And then when you go to grade 12, you study calculus and you study maybe all kinds of quantum physics and all those things you study in school. So one may say that, when you are slowly advancing up the levels, you don't need to practice ABCD. Like when you're in grade 12, you don't need to do ABCD. But having said that, one should still do their homework. So regardless of what grade you're in, you still have to do your homework. So similarly, Krishna is pointing out here also that just because you are advanced in spirituality or just because you are advanced in a particular type of yoga, that doesn't mean that you give up certain activities. So homework needs to be performed by all kids. Similarly, these activities need to be performed by everyone. So regardless of what your level is. So either you are a basic devotee, medium devotee, advanced devotee, or even a liberated devotee. In those cases, still you have to perform these activities. So what are these 3 activities? Let's discuss these. And what Srila Prabhupada was talking about in the verse, in the purport, because it seems like Prabhupada's purport was unrelated, but actually it was not unrelated. There was a reason behind that anyways. So the first thing Krishna says is yagya should not be given up. Yagya means sacrifice should not be given up. What is yajna? I mean, if you look at the English translation for yajna, it comes as sacrifice. But it doesn't really fit, because generally speaking, the word sacrifice, it comes from the Christian and the Jewish tradition, where they would generally have to slaughter an animal, and then that would come. A blood sacrifice was considered to be a real sacrifice. It started all the way from Abraham. So I don't know how many of you know Abraham, but he was the one who was almost about to, God asked him to sacrifice his own son to see whether or not he had the faith and whether he had that level of detachment. And then Abraham was almost about to slaughter his son, but then God appeared and he said, no need to slaughter him. So that's where the tradition started. So then people just started to mindlessly slaughter animals, and they called it sacrifice. So that's the history of sacrifice within the Western world. But actually, if you look at the Vedas, this concept of yajna was always there. In fact, this yajna was meant to be done by householders, especially the grahasthas. It was meant to be done every day. It was known as the Agni Karyam. Agni Karyam means that when, let's say, you have to light the fire, but essentially the idea is that when you get married, in front of fire, right? You do the fairas you do around the fire. So after that, you take part of that fire and you take it home, and you maintain that fire throughout your life. So basically, every morning you have to put wood in it. You need to look after the fire. In the evening, you have to maintain that fire. Until you die, you were meant to maintain that fire, because that fire pretty much travels with you throughout your life. So this Agni Karyam was very, very important actually. And it is so much so that, even Bhishma, everyone knows Bhishma, I'm assuming. He was a great orchestrator in the Mahabharata war. Even he used to do this Agni Karyam. So now you may say, well, Bhishma was brahmachari. But so how can he do Agni Karyam? He was not even married. Well, Bhishma was technically a grahastha, because a brahmachari is one who lives in the ashram of their guru, and they don't engage in politics. They don't engage in managing the kingdom as a kshatriya. A brahmachari, according to the technical rules, they are meant to live in their ashrama. Whereas Bhishma, he took a vow of brahmacharya, which means that he took a vow of celibacy, but he was not a brahmachari. Because if he was a brahmachari, there are many descriptions. In fact, when Bhishma passes away at the end of his life, Krishna says to Yudhishthira, he says, go bring Bhishma's Agni that he lights every day. Bring his fire so that we can cremate him. So when one leaves his body, that same fire that you maintain throughout your life, that is used to ultimately cremate you. So that is known as the Agni Karyam. So that was considered a form of yajna, because every day you remember that around this yajna is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when you do the Vivaha Samskara, when you do the marriage ceremony, at that time the Agni, actually you invoke Lord Vishnu into that Agni. If you listen to the mantras nicely, you will understand that Vishnu is that form, Vishnu is that fire. So then when Vishnu appears, Vishnu acts as a witness for that marriage ceremony. And then Vishnu is the one who actually you have to serve throughout your life. So when you see that fire form at home, you were meant to be reminded that this fire is none other than Vishnu himself. So then you serve that fire every day, and you maintain it throughout your life. And you have this kind of dedication and discipline where you have to maintain it every day without letting it extinguish. So then when you have maintained that fire throughout your life, and then when that fire comes and cremates you at the end of your life, then your life was considered to be perfect. So this yajna concept was there in the Vedic system. Now there were many, many different types of yajnas. One of them is, as I explained, like where people are offering ghee and offering food to the Agni. But there was another form of yajna where you would do, there are obviously many different types, but there are certain types of yajnas which you would do for your own pleasure or something. Let's say you want to achieve something. Then you would do a certain type of yajna also. You could do another, like for example, we recently did this Graha Pravesha Yajna. So at that time we did the Sudarshana Homa, for example. So that is there. Like when you have certain ceremonies, you do a certain type of yajna. And then let's say in the Vedic tradition, there were also provision for, let's say, like you wanted to ascend to the heavenly planets. You want to go to Swarga. So at that time also you could perform yajna. We see many examples of this in Ramayana. In Ramayana, we see that there was a certain king called Trishankhu. This Trishankhu wanted to perform yajna so that he could go to the heavenly planets in his very own body. Even though his body was that of a Kshatriya, he wanted to go in that body. And then the demigods and the heavenly planets said that no, this guy is not suitable to come up. So they blocked his, so he was, as he was ascending into the heavenly planets, they stopped him. They said, no, this guy is not suitable to come up. So then there's a whole story where he goes to Vasishtha, and then like Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, they have a fight and all of that, like all of that is there. But the idea is you can perform yagyas for your own personal satisfaction also, like for your own personal desires. That type of yagya has a separate name. I can't really remember the name of that. It comes in Vishnu Sahasranama anyways. But that is an inferior type of yagya. The superior type of yagya is that which is done to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what is the type of yagya that pleases Krishna the most? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yagya nam japa yagyo asmi, which means that out of all the yagyas, I am the japa yagya. Japa yagya means when one chants the holy name of the Lord. So that yagya is considered to be the most pleasing to the Lord. If you look at yagya, there are 5 different, we can talk just entirely about yagyas also. Like if you look at sacrifice or yagya, there are 5 characteristics of yagyas. Like there needs to be the person who offers the oblation, there needs to be the kunda, there needs to be the oblation itself, there needs to be the fire, and there needs to be a result that comes out of fire. If you read Vishnu Sahasranama, you will see that all of those 5 actually are Krishna except for the performer of the yagya. Actually, even that is known as Yajavan, and even that is actually Krishna's name. So that is quite interesting because it is said that when someone is unable to perform yagya, then at that time Krishna comes and out of his own causeless mercy, he performs yagya on behalf of that person. So we see some examples. One example is Bhishma. So when Bhishma was on the battlefield and he was lying with arrows, at that time he was not able to perform his yagya. So the question is, who was maintaining his fire? So actually Krishna was maintaining his fire. So that is why one of the names of Krishna is Yajavan. Yajavan means one who also performs sacrifice on behalf of his devotees. So much merciful is Krishna. So Krishna actually ends up doing everything. If you read, I don't know how many of you here know the Purusha Sukta or have heard of Purusha Sukta. Yeah, there's one hymn called Purusha Sukta which is recited before every yagya. And in that it is explained that Krishna or the Supreme Purusha, he becomes the Havis. Yat Purushena Havishaha. He becomes the Havis. He becomes the, essentially he becomes the sacrificial object as well. Because where else are you going to find sacrificial objects? We can't find sacrificial objects. So that is why he actually ends up becoming that also. Actually, there's one very nice story. It comes, interestingly enough, it comes from the Islamic tradition. So I'm only reciting it because it's quite relevant and it makes sense. So once upon a time, there was a lion. Okay. Now this lion, he wanted to hunt, and he noticed that, like he's the only one who's getting all the animals because none of the other animals were able to get food. So there was a wolf and there was a fox. So this wolf and fox, they decide to approach the lion. And they say to the lion that, we hardly are able to eat anything. Is it okay if we join your pack? We'll stay together. So then the lion agrees. He says, yeah, that's fine. You can join the pack with me. So what the lion does is he says to the fox and the wolf, he says that you both stay in your respective caves. At the end of the day, I will come with the kill, and then we will divide the whole, whatever we've killed eventually. So then the lion goes and throughout the day, he kills 3 animals. He kills 1 ox, he kills a deer, and he kills a rabbit. So he kills these 3 animals and then he brings these animals he goes first to the wolf. And then when he goes to the wolf, he asks the wolf, he says, see, I've killed these 3 animals, this ox, this deer, and this rabbit. Now it is your task, you should divide all of this. So the wolf says, well, looking at the size, he says that, you are the biggest, so therefore you should eat the ox. And then he says that I am mediocre, I'm in the middle, so I should take the, deer. And then the fox is the smallest, so he should take the rabbit. The lion gets very annoyed at this answer. And with his paw, he literally just smacks the wolf and he says, you're a fool and you're a rascal. And he literally kills him on the spot. Yeah, he says that you don't know anything about how this works. So then he takes those 3 animals and he goes to the fox. And he asks them, how should we divide these? So then the fox, He was very clever. Fox, foxes are very clever and they're very cunning. So he knew, but he was also intelligent in this case. So the fox said that, yes, I know how to divide these. He said that this ox, king should eat in the morning. The lion should eat in the morning because he has a heavy day in front of him. He says, then for lunch, the king should eat. The lion should eat the deer. And in the dinner, you should have a light dinner. So you should eat the rabbit at the end. So then the lion became very pleased. He says that, yes, actually you have understood this whole process. He says that actually the fox knows that he's not the one who has done any of this killing. He says that this wolf, I went to the wolf first, but this wolf was so foolish that he was claiming proprietorship over my kill without offering it to me first. He says that I am a merciful lion, so I will give it to you anyways. But first of all, you should realize whom does this kill eventually belong to. So he says that because I have made the kill, actually ultimately everything belongs to me. So now you can understand what this analogy is actually referring to. This analogy is referring to who is the lion? Any guesses? Lion is Krishna, isn't it? Yeah. And the fox is us. We are meant to be the fox, or you can say we are probably like the wolf. Yeah, because we want to consume part of what Krishna has given us. So ultimately, like whatever we get, whatever money we get, whatever comforts we get, whatever shelter we get, everything is given to us by Krishna. But we want to control that thing. We want to say that, no, this is mine. So that's what the lion said. He said that wolf had this mentality of me and mine. He was not interested in offering everything that was given to him to the person who gave it to him. That's why in the Vedic culture it's so good. Like in the morning, the people would do their Sandhya Vandana. And in the Sandhya Vandana, they would take water from the lake and they would ultimately offer it to that water itself. And even they would also recite the Gayatri Mantra in front of Surya Deva. They would worship Surya Deva with that water also, because they know that whatever water they're getting it from the sun. So ultimately they're not worshipping the demigod sun, but they're actually worshipping Surya Narayana. But that is a different story. But ultimately the idea is that they offer everything to the source of everything. Like when you go to Ganga, you take water from the Ganga and offer it to that. So similarly, this whole concept was there. So we need to get this straight in our head that everything, whatever we get, whatever possessions we have, ultimately they all belong to Krishna. Krishna is the one who has given all of these to us. And we should first offer everything back to Krishna. That is the process of yajna. That is essentially what this yajna is meant to drive into our brain. That everything, Ishavashyam edam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat, which means that everything is owned and everything is maintained by Krishna. And ultimately everything needs to be given back to Krishna. And that is also known as Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means we take the things which are necessary for promoting Krishna's mission in Krishna consciousness, and then we give it ultimately back to him. We utilize everything in Krishna's service. So that is known as yajna. That is the process of yajna. So you can see why this act of yajna should not be given up even by liberated persons. Because if a liberated person gives up this concept of yajna, or he gives up performing yajna, then it means that he doesn't really recognize that everything belongs to Krishna. And such a person has already fallen down. So a person in whose consciousness it is already built that everything ultimately belongs to Krishna, such a person will perform yajna. And the best type of yajna, Krishna says, is japa yajna, which means yajnanam japa yajyo asmi, which means that one should chant the holy names of the Lord. Because by chanting the holy names of the Lord, Krishna becomes extremely pleased. So, like when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare refers to Radharani, or Hare refers to the energy of the Lord, which is none other than Radharani. So when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna hears the word Hare and he becomes happy. Because when Krishna hears Radharani's name, he becomes happy. And then when you chant Krishna, Radharani hears Krishna's name and she becomes happy. So then when Krishna sees that Radharani is happy, he becomes even more happy. So like that is the real understanding of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Same thing with Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Same thing. So Hare again refers to the energy of the Lord, which is Radharani, or it can be Sita Devi also. You can take it as that. Srila Prabhupada said you can take Rama to mean either Balarama, you can take Rama to mean Lord Rama, Ramachandra, or you can take Rama to mean Parshurama. This is what Srila Prabhupada said. So yeah, you can take it anyway, but idea is that whenever you're chanting, the goal of chanting should be I should please Krishna. So when we are chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but in our mind we are thinking about all other things like how am I going to perform at my work today? Oh, I need to reply to my emails. Or, oh, this person had messaged me 40 days ago, but I haven't replied. I think now is the perfect time to reply to their message. We had all these kinds of thoughts, like when you're chanting, of course. So that is something that we should not do. At that time, the only focus should be that we are chanting the holy names to please Krishna. And then if we perform activities like that, then advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So if you perform with this attitude, then Krishna will ultimately be pleased. If you just perform japa yagya just like, I don't know, with some half-hearted interest and just as a formality, then Krishna will also listen just as a formality. Like, okay, fine, I have to listen. Are ye aa gaya sir pakane. Like, he'll think, oh my God, like I have to listen to this guy again. But if you perform with enthusiasm, with a desire to serve Krishna, then Krishna will also come and listen with a similar emotion. He will reciprocate with your desires. So that is why we should definitely take care when we're performing yagya. Yagya means when we're chanting the holy name of the Lord. Then the next topic which is discussed is sacrifice, charity. Charity is what? Dana. So yagya dana. So charity, it's described that even those who are liberated should give charity. So there's a very nice example of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, if you see on the altar here, you will see there is Srila Prabhupada on the far right, like in the bottom where we have the Vigrahas. So Srila Prabhupada is on the bottom, rightmost side, in the orange clothes. Then immediately left to him is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, who is the guru of Srila Prabhupada. And then immediately right to him is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji in the white clothes. So right in the middle. So there's a story about him that, he did not have any money, he did not have any clothes to wear, etc. Like he was like a complete madman because he was just interested in chanting the holy name of the Lord. So one day it's described that, because he was so famous in Bengal, because he was such a Vairagi that he would only eat some like half-boiled rice, half-cooked rice once a day, that's it. And if he didn't get that also, he would fast the whole day. So he didn't care about eating at all. So he was a very, very renounced personality. And one day, because he was so renounced, people in India generally, they have this tendency that they like to give money to people who are renounced. They like to do sadhu seva. So people would come and they would give him a lot of money. So now he gave all of his money to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was one of his gurus. So he would give all of the money to his guru. He said that, just keep it in bank account. If I need it, I'll take it later. So one night he knocked at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. He was chanting his Mahamantra at 1 o'clock at night. He came and he knocked on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's door and he said, I want all of my money. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur is like, well, I can't, how can I give it to you? I have to go to the bank and stuff. He's like, no, I don't know what you do, but I want my money right now. Just give me money. So he said, okay, fine. So somehow or the other, he gathered all the money and he gave him all of his money. He said, here's all your money. He had like a lot of coins. So he took all of those coins and he went to the local bakery. You have your delis here nowadays. You have Merlot Cafe. Like that, he went to the Merlot Cafe in Mayapur at that time. And then obviously it was closed because the owner was sleeping. So he knocked on the owner's door and he woke him up. He said, hey, wake up. I need some jalebis. Then he said, what time is this? Why do you want jalebis? He said, no, I want jalebis right now. So the shop owner went, he saw whatever jalebis were there, whatever sweets were there, he gathered everything and he gave it to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. So then Gaur Kishore Das Babaji took all of that, gave the money, and he took all of the sweets and he gave it to the dogs in Mayapur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was actually quite curious. So he was following Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and he saw that he's gone to take these sweets and then he's given all of these sweets to the dogs. So next morning when he came, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he went back and the next morning he came and asked Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He said, why did you give all of that? Why did you feed all of the dogs? You could have used all of that money to build a temple. You could have used all of that to and distribute it to the poor people, etc. like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave lots of other options. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was very interesting. So he said that the reason I fed all the dogs in the middle of the night is because he says, I don't want any fame to come to me. He says, if I build a big temple, then people will come and glorify me. Oh wow, this temple was built by the great Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, he said. He said, if I go and give money to a poor person, anyone, he said, then those people will go and glorify me. They will say, oh, we were so hungry and then Gaur Kishore Das Babaji gave us food. So he said, they will glorify me. So he said, I don't want any glorification. He said, I hate glorification of my own name. So he said, the best thing I thought to do is to give it to the dogs, because the dogs will not glorify me. So he said that is the best form of charity he could give. So now this is quite interesting. It's not that we should also start doing this, like, okay, well, all of the money we should take and we should just give it to the birds or give it to everyone. No, that's not the idea. The idea is that a valuable lesson needs to be learned from the way Gaur Kishore Das Babaji gave charity. In that he gave charity firstly without any expectation of return. So he did not want anything to be given back to him. Because if he built a temple or if he gave to someone, then maybe there would be that slight desire that, eventually maybe when I need it in the future, these people will give me back some of that. So that desire might linger. So he didn't want any of that. He didn't have any expectation of return. Secondly, he didn't have any desire to be glorified. This is also there in the Christian tradition, actually. In the Christian tradition, once Jesus Christ was at the main temple in Jerusalem, and at that time he sees that there are many, many rich people that are coming and they're giving lots of gold in charity to the temple. So, and then he notices that there is one old woman who is coming from the backside and she gives some of her clothes to the temple and then she goes away. And then it's described that Jesus Christ turned to his disciples and he said that God will be more pleased with that old woman than he will be with these people who are giving all of these big, big gold ornaments. He said because these people who are giving all of these gold ornaments, they're literally giving all of this in front of everyone. So they make a huge show of it and then they're doing it for their own glorification. So then Jesus Christ said that these people have their reward. So let's say you're giving some donation. Generally, people expect some kind of return or some kind of reward for that. So then Jesus Christ said that when people glorify you in front of everyone, that is your reward. Finished. Don't expect any more reward from God. When people have glorified you, it's finished. Nothing more. But he said when someone goes in secret and gives donation, like that old woman, said if someone goes behind the back and gives a donation, he says what is given in secret, God will glorify in public. So then God will essentially glorify you somehow or the other in public. Now obviously we don't give charity with the intention of glorification in public, but the idea is that Krishna will reciprocate somehow or the other. So that mentality should be there, that when we are giving charity, it should not be for our own glorification, and it should not be it should not be with some kind of expectation in mind. So that is how charity needs to be given as well. And then the last thing that Krishna mentions there is penance or tapasya. Now nowadays we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam every morning. In there, Srila Prabhupada explained very nicely that actually performing yoga is actually meant for health. Like you may perform all these yoga asanas and all of that. That is all for health. But we should not think that performing yoga asanas like pranayama and all of that will actually please Krishna, unless it is performed with all of the other prerequisites of yoga. Like, how many of you here know Ashtanga Yoga? Everyone's heard Ashtanga Yoga? What does it mean? Ashta Anga means 8 limbs. There are 8 limbs of yoga. Does anyone know what are the limbs of yoga? What are the 8 limbs?
Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama.
Yes? Atyahara. Yeah.
Dhyana, Samadhi.
Dhyana and then Samadhi, and there's one more as well. I can't remember. But yeah, you're right. So there are 8 limbs, and of which the exercise portion actually only starts at the 3rd level. So Yama, Niyama, Asana. Asana starts at the 3rd level. Yeah, so before that, Yama and Niyama are there. What are Yama and Niyama? Yama and Niyama means rules and regulations. So rules and regulations means you should wake up early in the morning, you should sleep early at night, you should only eat sattvic food. If you want to perform yoga, you need to eat only once a day. Actually, there's one nice saying. It says, one who eats 1 time a day is a yogi, one who eats 2 times in a day is a bhogi, and one who eats 3 times in a day is a rogi. For those who don't know, it means 1 time in a day is yogi, 2 times in a day is one who is addicted to sense gratification, that's a bhogi, and 3 times is rogi. Rogi means one who gets diseases. So you can see how many times. Nowadays, they recommend eat 6 times a day. Actually, I think that's gone. Nowadays, they say you should do intermittent fasting. Even that 6 times a day is gone nowadays. So they're eventually coming back to the Vedic system where you should not spend too much time eating. Like you should, majority of the time you should actually remain fasting. So they're coming back. Vedas have already told this like millions of years ago, but now we're coming to that realization. So penance needs to be done by everyone. It needs to be done by those who have not advanced yet, and it needs to be done by those who are already advanced. So this penance also should not be given up, because if you give up penance, then it's very easy to forget Krishna. So what are the penances of devotees? The penances of devotees are firstly waking up for Mangal Aarti every morning. One should wake up at 4:30 in the morning and they should worship Krishna. In fact, it is said that this is very harsh, it sounds very harsh, but this is what it said in the scriptures. It said that one who does not wake up at 4:30 in the morning is not considered a human being. I'm not saying that. Vedas say that. Don't shoot the messenger. So yeah, it said that if you don't wake up, so it said that all humans wake up at 4:30 in the morning. That's what it said. Only, I won't say who wakes up afterwards, but you can understand. Yeah, who doesn't wake up? So yeah, that is what it is said. So one should wake up early in the morning, one should perform Mangala Aarti, one should also, another form of tapasya is one should follow the Ekadashi Vrata. Ekadashi you should follow whenever it comes, you should fast on that day. And another form of tapasya is chanting your japa every morning, following the 4 rules and regulations, which are no meat eating, no intoxication. Intoxication means tea and coffee also. That may be difficult, especially for Indians to give up, but I know some people who have certainly given up those things because they know that will please Krishna. And no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. So these are the 4 regulative principles that need to be followed, and those are considered to be penance for devotees. So, a lot more can be said, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So if anyone has any questions or anything they would like to share or anything you want to ask, you can do so now. Yes, Prabhu?
It's a very stupid question, but
No, that's all right.
we, although we relate any personality with lion, but it has to be relatable with every nature, because lion attacks while hiding, not attacking. So do you think it's when we relate any personality with anyone, praying to Prahlad Maharaj, that you are fearless like lion, but does it matter, because lion always attacks in the out of bushes or something, but does it relate to the fearlessness of
Every time, yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes the idea is that whenever someone is giving an analogy, they give it with a particular characteristic of a lion. They're using that, one particular characteristic of that to drive a point home. That's the idea. You can use whatever other animal you like. Like if you don't like lion, you can use tiger if you like, but yeah, you can use elephant, that's fine. Yeah, but the whole idea of analogy is that Srila Prabhupada said this many times in his books actually, an analogy should not be taken too much forward. Yeah, you should use an analogy for a little bit and then drop it. Yeah, so we should not use analogies to explain everything. Like this lion and jackal analogy, we can't use to explain everything. Yeah. Yeah, just to drive a small point home, it should be used for that and then drop. Yeah, analogies we don't use to say how we fell from the spirit. You can't use this lion and fox and wolf analogy to explain how we came from the spiritual world to the material. For example, I'm just giving an example. Yeah, so generally analogies are meant to be used for a very specific purpose and then dropped after that. Yeah, we don't keep those analogies. But yeah, you can use whatever animal you like. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so yeah.
Krishna said, animals know me to be lion.
Yeah, Krishna said that in the 11th chapter also. He said, among all of the animals, I am the lion. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know how true that is, that lions attack from the bushes. That's a question for those who are into animal studies, but yeah, because I have seen lions literally coming in front and attacking also. And when they roar, it's explained, your hearts can shatter. Their roars you can hear from 5 kilometers away. So yeah, exactly. Here no, we're not discussing about lions, but yeah, it was just a side point.
I can think like that. It's like you said, lion is hiding and then attacking, right?
Yeah.
And we know that in Lord Krishna said that I will not use any shastra, any violence. But whatever was done there, it was all by him only.
But
Can you relate it?
we can use chal against other means.
I mean, see, again, now we are extending the analogy. The analogy was meant to be used for a specific purpose and then dropped. Yeah, we should not extend this lion analogy. Maybe I should not have recited that story, actually, if it's causing so much confusion. So, yeah. Okay, we'll finish there then. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, we'll stand up for Aarti now.